So, could you tell us what we're listening to?
It's called There Must Be a Way Across This River. It was a performance that was done on Valentine's Day in was it like 2008? I think 2007 or 8. It was recorded in a basement where there was an open reel tape recorder set up toward the ceiling, and open reel tape went through the recorder and across the room, went around a hook in the ceiling, and then came back again, and it moved, so it was like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 meters long, this loop that was going over everybody's heads in the performance. There were maybe 15 people there. And there was a refrigerator, a pro refrigerator in the room, making it colder and colder and colder and colder and colder and colder all the time. The EVP that starts and finishes this piece was recorded at my childhood home, place that I didn't want to go back to. Michael Esposito, who recorded it, convinced me to, and he was quite insistent, in fact, about going to this place and speaking with the present owner in this way, where he had a tape recorder, or like a Zoom digital recorder behind his back as he spoke to the owner of the house, trying to ask him to let us come inside the house, which I really didn't want to do. The owner would not let us in, and the conversation went maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes total. In that conversation, there was EVP that is used in this piece again, that says we could hear 3 things in it. We could hear, John, my God, we've always been here. We're waiting for you. What else would you like?
What was the first thing they said? John?
John, my God.
Oh, God.
So they called me by name, which I'd never seen before, I'd never heard before, and it intimidated me.
Did you felt like there was some presence in the house as you grew up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What made you feel that?
Well, I spent a lot of time in the basement when I actually lived there, and sometimes I'd come down there when all the lights were out, so I'd come down there in the dark and I would feel something there. When I would go down there and play, I would feel something there. I sort of made a world down there, just stayed down there and lived in this world. Sometimes when I'd be down there, I could feel this something there.
And having grown up with a religious having had a religious upbringing, were you taught about things like spirits, ghosts?
Oh, no. For my family and that kind of, the kind of religious upbringing I got, that kind of thing didn't exist. So, there wasn't room in it for much of anything, really. Certainly not that. He did a DVD called The Sally House, where he and a friend of his went to record and shoot video in this house that the people in the town where this house existed all said was haunted. They went there, and on the video you can see that Michael is walking back. There's an infrared camera on as he's walking back, and all of a sudden from here somewhere. And his partner also they've gone off different directions. So from here, so you know that there's nobody back there. All of a sudden, from outside this corner, there's someone kind of flying across and almost hits him on the head. Something solid.
And did they find out what it was?
Well, yeah, he knew pretty soon, immediately, what it was. And I think it was a brick. It was something really heavy. Yeah. So, something that should not have been flying around on its own, And there was nobody to throw it. So, yeah.
Have you done any other similar works or any other works using EVP?
Not so far.
And
I'm not in any real hurry to.
Yeah.
But I was really intimidated when I first heard this this voice, or whatever you want to call it, calling me by name. I'd never seen that before, and I thought that I was kind of playing around with something that I didn't really understand, and that was a kind of risk. The kind of risk that we were talking about just a minute ago, with having something real to say, having something that is a lot more powerful than you really understand, and play with it and get in trouble. Matches to a little kid. Oh, this is a cute little thing. What does this do? Oh, look at that. It burns a table. Whoa. Yeah. Something like that. So, for a long time I didn't want to work with these, and Michael kept pushing me to try to make something with them. So I finally got around to it, but it took me quite a while to sort of overcome this resistance to do that. And one of the things that helped, once I'd gotten over the resistance and it made this piece in the background we're listening to, was an interpretation that instead of being a sort of intimidation or a kind of threat, that it could be seen as a kind of comfort. We've always been here, we're waiting for you. Take your time, whenever you're ready, we're here. It could be actually quite welcoming. And I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So now that I've sort of adjusted my head to be able to consider that as well, then yeah, I could see getting into it. But I want to know more about it. I want to know a lot more about code word.
And to ask you about your work with shortwave radio.
Yeah.
So how did you use that? What kind of works did you make?
How did I use that? Well, at first, shortwave seemed to be the perfect instrument for me to play music, because it's impossible to practice and improve your ability to use a radio. It just doesn't work like that. Whatever is out there is what you get, and it depending on the kind of antenna you have, the kind of day it is, the kind of weather that's around, the activity of sunspots. All these things are completely out of your control, and I loved that. I thought, yeah, this is the kind of music instrument I like.
So was this your first endeavor into music, with the shortwave radio?
I tried doing some things with voice before that. But they were very, very primitive experiments, and yeah. So I guess so. I guess you could say that shortwave is the, apart from being in a rock band in high school and playing the piano as a kid, going to piano lessons or being forced to take piano lessons. But that doesn't really count. Those are sort of negative influences.
And so, how did you make these shortwave radio recordings?
With a portable receiver that I got from a shop that sold all kinds of things like that, electronics. And the influence for, or the inspiration for getting a shortwave radio in the first place came from my very dear friend Gary Joe Gardenhire, who had a shortwave radio, and we listened to it a little bit, and he said that he just turned it on and would just try to get stations like the BBC and that sort of thing. But for me, the thing that was fascinating about it was when 2 or 3 stations would sort of interweave, or when he would find a sound that wasn't connected to any radio station. It had to do with atmospheric interference. It had to do with some sort of cosmic phenomenon. So I thought, yeah, this is really great. And it's cheap. It was relatively cheap. It was a radio that would do what his radio would do, was very affordable for me.
And was that was different to a standard home radio?
Yeah. Shortwave works on frequencies that are much shorter than FM modulation. So, or FM frequencies, or AM radio. So you needed a more elaborate antenna. The more elaborate the antenna, the better the reception was.
So once you picked up something interesting on the shortwave radio, and you'd record it, or you'd use it live and record it?
There's no way to use shortwave live that I've been able to find, because most of the venues that invite me to play, certainly, are made of concrete blocks and steel that block the shortwave sound. So you need an antenna, a relatively long antenna, to pick up anything at all, and then. So the only way to do that would be to set up a long antenna outside the venue and then run a cable from that antenna down into the radio, so you can sort of bypass the blocks that the building creates. And then you never know from one day to the next what you're going to get. It could be something really interesting, it could be something really tedious, it could be, you never know. So you can't count on that for a live event. So I made a lot of recordings of shortwave. Oh yeah, one more thing. This is very important. Is that shortwave really gets going at around midnight, because the sun is, the sun is here, Earth is here, and you are here. So the interference that comes from the sun is all blocked. And there's a 6-hour window between midnight and 6 in the morning when it's possible, right? Yeah, 6 in the morning is about the end. When you can hear all kinds of things going on. Once the sun starts coming in and interfering, then it's gone.
So what kind of, would you hear other kinds of atmospheric interference, or that was only when the sun was around?
When the sun was around, you could only hear a kind of buzz. So the sun would negate everything else. Yeah, the radiation was too intense. It would cancel out everything else.
Including radio station signals?
Yeah. Anything, pretty much anything that you could pick up at night on the shortwave was gone during the day.
So it's pretty much a nocturnal activity.
Yeah, forgot. Yeah, I've tried so many different ways to kill myself. One of them was drinking liter after liter of French roast coffee to stay awake and stay on this radio, just stay focused on these tiny little movements all night for months at a time.
So it's very sensitive.
Yeah.
And what were some of the more interesting things that you picked up?
Well, the kind of sounds that I liked were the kind of sounds that were further and further away from anything that could be recognizably human. Human voice, music, languages of different kinds. The only thing that was interesting to listen to, for me to listen to, that had anything to do with language were the number stations, the secret messages that are being.
So you picked those up as well?
In various languages, and I didn't know what they were, so I took a cassette of a recording that I'd made to Korea when I had to go to Korea for other reasons, and played this for a guy who was just sitting next to me in the airport. And I asked him, "Can you tell me what language this is? I can't tell what language it was." And it sounded, to me it sounded Korean, but it could have been anything. He put the headset on and he listened for a minute, and then he very slowly took the headset off, handed them back to me, looked at me, and then just got out as fast as he could, got as far away from me as he possibly could.
So you think he knew what it was?
I think he knew, I think it was so alien to him that he had no idea what to think of me or what I was listening to or any of that. He just wanted away from me as fast as he could get. Yeah.
And could you tell when you were listening to, you could pick up solar activity?
It didn't matter to me if I could understand what the source was, as long as the sound itself was interesting. Yeah. So then when I get an interesting sound, I would record that, and then I would wind the tape back, and then I'd look for another interesting sound that may or may not have gone with that first one. When I found a second sound, I'd record that together, and then in this way build a sort of composition with these different recordings.
And were you interested in the experiments with radio by Bell and Watson? Did you know about those things?
What are these? I still don't. What are these?
Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone, and his assistant Watson.
The Italians have a problem with that.
Marconi.
No. That's radio. That's radio. Yeah.
Who else was it? I forget.
There was an inventor of the telephone, an Italian inventor of the telephone, that felt gypped by Alexander Graham Bell.
Do you know his name?
No, I don't remember his name.
I've read about it.
Yeah. But the issue between Marconi and Tesla is something I know. Tesla actually won that one.
And what was that?
Tesla invented radio.
Well, apparently Bell's assistant Watson used to spend the night listening to his radio frequencies, I think, that they picked up during their experiments trying to invent the telephone. And he'd be listening to them all night and picking up lots of strange things.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before. Huh. Hmm. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And Tesla too, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not at all be surprised if he was interested in sort of looking for the music of the spheres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these shortwave experiments were in Tokyo.
Yeah.
To begin with.
Yeah.
And did you set up pirate radio station in Tokyo, or was that
Yes.
TV station as well?
Both.
And how did you start doing the TV thing?
Well, when I saw that it was possible to do radio, I thought it would be maybe even more fun, maybe even a lot more fun to start doing television. It took me quite a while before I found somebody who was willing to help me build a TV transmitter, because everybody was afraid of being arrested. It was still considered illegal. There were kits that were available to making a TV transmitter that would broadcast for 500 meters. It was something like, it was developed to make it possible to set up a surveillance camera to an office somewhere. So the camera would be transmitting its signal through this transmitter back to the office, and you could watch it on a normal TV. You could watch who was at your front door, or who was at this at the gate, or something like that.
So it was like home surveillance or business surveillance
and
technology that you were using?
Yes, but the thing that took so long to get it to actually work the way I wanted it to was you had to get around a kind of signal limiter. And I didn't know anybody who knew how to do that, who was willing to talk to me about how to do it at the risk of getting caught and having to talk to the police. And
the limiter limited how far the signal could be transmitted?
Right. So without that limiter, it could go a kilometer or 2 kilometers, which in Europe is nothing. But in Japan, in Tokyo, it means that you have an audience of maybe 10, 15, 20,000 people. So there it made sense to play with that. Yeah. And the thing that made the government so paranoid about it was that the people who were interested in using that technology were interested in overriding what the government was putting out, and I had no interest in doing that. I wanted to add to what was going on rather than to interrupt or like superimpose something on that.
So you didn't have a political agenda with what you were broadcasting, or?
No.
Were you interested in the process of the transmission itself?
I was interested in setting up a situation where somebody would be sitting in their apartment, in their room, turning on the TV with a bout of insomnia, flipping through the channels, knowing that most of the broadcasts were over for the day, and then suddenly coming across something that wasn't supposed to be there, that they'd never seen before, something that you wouldn't see in Japanese media at all. Where is the signal coming from? What the hell is it? And just sort of sit there and watch it and somehow sort of absorb that.
This is a sort of reminds me of kind of a motif of some movies from the 80s where suddenly your TV station is taken over by someone.
Right, aliens.
Or something.
Yeah. It's an alien signal. It's got control of you through your television. Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true.